Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Justin Shier. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
For sure. So Justin, I'm excited to chop it up with you, man. The first question that I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Well, I think the long answer to that is I think it's not really up for discussion. I think Ronnie Coleman would be the best bodybuilder of all time, the greatest bodybuilder of all time. But when it comes to my favorite bodybuilders and the people that influence me most, I would probably have to say Dorian Yates, just for training principles and kind of how he changed bodybuilding. And then Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is my guy, man. You know, I think we can all agree that Jay has been an amazing ambassador for the sport, and I hugely admire what he's done in bodybuilding. But Dorian Yates, that's training principles that I follow to this day, and I really appreciate what that guy's done for bodybuilding. So I'd say those two. Yeah.
Those are some pretty legit three right there. Definitely.
Yeah.
I echo Jay Cutler. He's my all-time favorite, man. And he comes up literally, if not every podcast, every other podcast. And a lot of times people say it's not just the bodybuilding, it's also the business and kind of the legacy.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. I think just kind of all encompassing, how he treats his fans, his, the business aspect of things, and how he presented himself and just everything. I think Jay Cutler's been, tremendous, continued, tremendous ambassador for the sport. And I think we all owe a lot to Jay.
For sure. So the second question, Justin, I have for you is, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
Well, I got into it late. Honestly, I rode BMX my whole life. It was kind of my thing, like freestyle BMX tricks and stuff like that. And I believe I was 26. What was it? It was 2013, maybe 8 years ago. Yeah, so about 26, 20 or 25 rather. I was involved in an accident. I was hit by a car on my bike, and I broke my femur. I broke my hip. So I broke my femur in 3 places, actually. I broke my hip, and then I broke my my tibia. It was a pretty serious accident. And after that, I got into the gym just for strictly rehab purposes. I thought, I didn't want to, wither away and get skinny. And I thought I need to get in there and work out. So I was in the gym on my crutches, just trying to rehab to be strong for BMX. And it ended up being like a year-long process before I was even able to weight bear on this leg. Like I said, I broke my femur in 3 places. So I broke it in 2 places, then those 2 pieces broke in half. I mean, it was pretty severe. So I ended up with a non-union, had some hardware in my leg, and had to have multiple surgeries. But, over that time, I was just in the gym, 5 days a week training, obviously just upper body. But during that time, I just fell in love with it. You start making a little bit of progress in the gym, you start seeing changes in your physique. And ultimately, that just kind of was a big pivot point for me, where I went from the kid who rode BMX to, a guy who spent, 5 days a week in the gym. And that was kind of all she wrote.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, that's definitely a late start in terms of strength training. And I'm going to get, we're going to get kind of into the details of that in a bit, but why don't you talk about just your childhood a little bit, Justin? Where did you grow up? I'm sure BMX was a big part of your upbringing, and talk about maybe the family dynamics, anything else that kind of sticks out in your mind in terms of childhood up to about high school, and then we'll move on.
Sure. I was born and raised right here in Grants Pass in Southern Oregon. I had the benefit of really being raised perfectly, man. I've got wonderful parents, and they did a fantastic job with my brother and my sister and myself. So I consider myself extremely fortunate to have had the upbringing I had. We were, lower middle class, and we didn't, my parents didn't make a bunch of money or anything, but, my dad always, busted his ass and took good care of us. So yeah, I got into riding BMX when I was, 13, 14 years old. My older brother was riding bikes at that time, and that was just it for me. It was just my passion. I thought, this is what I'm doing. So I spent, every day on my bike at the skate park riding, street or dirt jumps or whatever, and I did that for, a 10 plus year, over a decade, until that accident, and actually after that accident, I still continued. I tried to ride again, but I ended up getting in another accident on my bike at a skate park, and I broke that same leg again. So it's one of those things, like, I spent 18 months like trying to get back to my bike, and I thought, all right, fuck, I feel good, let's ride. And I broke the same leg again. And after that, I was like, I'm just done. I'm not doing this anymore. So that was the pivot point for me. But as far as my upbringing, I was just a young kid who grew up in the woods, riding motorcycles with my dad, and riding BMX with my brother, and pretty humble upbringings. And so here we are today. It's been a blessing. I really appreciate the area I grew up in, and again, my folks were, man, fantastic people, and really did a great job raising us. So
now, did you outside of the BMX riding, did you play any other sports, Justin, when you were younger?
No, I never played any sports. I actually did play flag football. Oh man, 4th grade, something like that. And I just was not into it. I was terrible at it. I ran one touchdown, and I ran it in the wrong direction. I remember that so clearly, just sticking with me. I was so embarrassed, and I was just one of those things that it just never clicked. It was just never what I was into. And I just, again, like, the BMX thing was just kind of like a singular sport. It was just me. And it really, I think, has a lot of carryover into bodybuilding. It's like those hours and hours and hours you spend trying to perfect certain little things. I'm acclimated to just that singular focus into, one thing. And, nobody's really helping you at that point. Obviously I have a coach, but, it's ultimately it's up to us to make this thing happen, so.
Absolutely. No, that is definitely some strong carryover. So when you were in high school, what were you thinking about in terms of what you wanted to do as a career? Were you just solely focused on making a living from BMX, or where was your mindset at that stage? And then did you go off to college? Talk about that a little bit.
You know what? I didn't go to college. No. During that time in high school, I thought it was BMX. But within that, I was always into photography and videography. So I had cameras. I would be the guy that was at the skate park filming all my friends, taking pictures of everything. And that was kind of what I did. And, through that, I had a friend of mine that actually made a very legitimate career in BMX. And I did a lot of photo and video work with him. So I did have some photos printed in magazines and some ads and stuff like that. So I made a little bit of money off the photo thing, but that was kind of my idea. I thought I was going to be integrated into the BMX world, with a camera in my hand. That was really, really what I wanted to do. I was passionate about both those things. And, you know how it is when you're passionate about something, it really isn't about the money. You're just full steam ahead with what you love. So that was the initial idea. And that was really all I thought about.
How did you make a living then? I mean, were you doing some side hustle stuff, or did you get some sponsorships, or what?
So I did make some money just from like shooting photos and some video work. But during that time, I pretty much worked for my dad right out of high school. He owns a painting company. So we painted homes for a living. So painted homes, small construction, small remodel, stuff like that. But yeah, I did that for a good 10 years with my dad, until I can hear my phone vibrating. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But yeah, so that's what I did pretty much out of high school. I just, my brother and I worked with my dad. So it was a family dynamic. We painted homes together, and we, did that for years until my brother and I ended up kind of pivoting and doing our own thing, business wise.
Okay. So, talk about the photography and videography. That's kind of a unique passion. And what is it about those two things that you kind of enjoy or appreciate? And then how have those skills kind of translated over into social media, being a bodybuilder, promoting yourself, things like that? Because I think
Yeah.
there's a huge tie-in with that.
Yeah, definitely. There is definitely some carryover. And the thing with the photography and videography, and man, it is really perishable knowledge. So like if you're not taking pictures and using your camera, and I mean it's one of those things like it's really easy to forget how to do all that stuff. But the things you don't forget are, simple stuff like the composition of a photo, good angles to film, when to crop a video, how to edit it to music, things like that, that just kind of are hardwired. So I think that has helped me a little bit with, give me a bit of a leg up with just social media stuff in general. You see those guys that'll post a training video and it's just a video of the machine, and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. Then they walk up and then they strap up to the machine. I'm like, man, you've lost me. So that type of stuff, it's like crop that video to where if you're going to do a seated row, man, when they swipe, they want to see the row, little things like that, just angles and composition and stuff. But it was a passion of mine that I don't necessarily have that. I don't really have the bandwidth for it anymore, with bodybuilding. At the time with BMX, I knew I wasn't going to be one of the best BMX riders possible. And I knew that in order to infiltrate that world, I would have to bring some other value. I wasn't necessarily going to be the top tier talent. With bodybuilding, I actually believe I can be one of the best of this sport. So I would say that my drive towards this is completely different from my drive towards that. They're really two different things.
So you have your first accident, you have your second accident. During the first accident, you start lifting weights, you start rehabbing. Let's just kind of talk about then that entry into bodybuilding. So how did you actually go from just lifting weights in terms of rehab and kind of getting a little bit better for BMX into actually full blown, I am now a bodybuilder?
A bodybuilder. Well, like I said, that was in 2013, 14. And it was, again, just strictly for rehab purposes. And then I just fell in love with going to the gym. I just became just an average gym goer. I'd go 5 days a week after work. And I didn't really think of anything past that. Eventually my wife and I, we ended up buying a gym. We spent so much time in the gym, it just made sense, so we were like, if we're going to do this, like I said, I do own a few other businesses. So, business is something that I'm passionate about. So I thought this is a good opportunity. It's something we love and we're passionate about. Let's do this. So we ended up buying a local gym, and the place is just run down. He was an old bodybuilder, so it had a lot of cool old school equipment, but it just desperately needed some upkeep. I mean, the walls were painted white in the 80s and now they're yellow. So it was old school, like all the hammer strength stuff was blue, like all the Dorian Yates blue. There's a blue stripe all the way around the wall, and there's like brick halfway up that's blue, and green carpet, and it's just it was pretty rough. But I seen the image, I seen it. So we ended up buying that place, and I got rid of a lot of the equipment that was just a bit superfluous. We redid all the floors. I gutted and painted the place. Luckily, I have a background in that type of stuff, so we were able to do a lot of the remodel ourselves. And that was just kind of the catalyst. After that, I was like, this is just becoming a little bit more serious. And I have a few friends of mine that compete. And initially in 2000, I did my first show in 2019. And a buddy of mine, he was a men's physique competitor, and he wanted to do classic. And I was telling him, like, hey, dude, just do classic. Just do it. And he told me, if you do it, I'll do it. So I thought, all right, let's do it. I'm going to do a classic physique show. So this is in 2018, the end of 2018. At that time, I'm natural. I've never done any drugs. I've never competed, nothing. So his coach, a guy here locally, he's just north of me. I decided to reach out to him, and he took me on as a client. And I ran my first cycle, and I did my first contest prep, and I couldn't make weight for classic. I started that prep at 200 pounds, and I ended at 200 pounds. Like I didn't lose any weight, and I was about 10 pounds away from classic cutoff. So there's bodybuilding. And I loved it, man. It was really an amazing experience. And that year I was able to win the overall at one of our local shows. And it was just, that was it. It was kind of it for me. I'd always loved it, and I'd always trained like a bodybuilder. But you never really understand bodybuilding until you're bodybuilding, until you're, doing an hour of fasted cardio on 1,500 calories and you're going hypo on the stepper. You don't really truly understand what bodybuilding is. I loved it, man. I like that grind. I like that feeling. I like that dark place. I like throwing my hoodie on and being drenched in sweat and feeling like I'm going to fall off the stepper. There's something about that that's really rewarding.
So
that was it.
Okay. So 2019 was your first bodybuilding competition, correct, Justin?
Yep.
Okay. So
and then the following year, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Just talk about just the rest of your competition history, please.
Well, I mean, I was obviously nationally qualified, and I thought I could do it. So I did USA's last year. I ended up with a fourth place finish at USA's, and after that, I wasn't quite happy with how it turned out. I felt like we missed my peak a little bit. I had been with my coach for, it was the second year in a row. And it wasn't anything with him. I just felt like at that point, I wanted to try something different. I'd spent 2 years with my coach, and, oddly enough, the guy who won heavyweights that year was Matt Jansen's client. Matt Jansen's a guy that I've followed, and I've seen his training principles, and I've seen a lot of what he does, we align with very well. So I decided to reach out to Matt, and Matt took me on just after USA's. So I spent the last year with Matt in an off-season setting, and now this is my first prep with Matt. And here we are coming into NPC Nationals. We're about 6 weeks out, and I feel very good, and I feel very grateful to have Matt in my corner.
So how many shows have you actually competed in, including your first competition that was Classic Physique up to this point?
So no, I didn't make Classic.
Oh,
My first show I did, I was a light heavyweight. Yeah, okay. I barely squeezed into that 198. But I did that in 2019. I did 3 shows back to back. There was one every 2 weeks. So I was able to get on stage 3 times that year. USA's was my 4th show. So this will be my 5th show.
Wow.
So it'll be my 3rd year competing, and then my 5th show.
I love it, man. You've lived some life, but you're so young within the bodybuilding realm. Now, you said earlier, Justin, that you believe you can be one of the best when it comes to bodybuilding. Where did that belief come from? Because you spent, a lot of your adulthood outside of bodybuilding, outside of strength training. Where does that self-belief and that, understanding that you could be one of the best bodybuilders, where does that come from?
Well, I have a lot of people in my corner that believe in me, and that helps, and I have Matt who believes in me. And, I really can't say enough about what the confidence in my coach has instilled in me personally. And I know what I'm capable of. I see what I can do. And I just fully believe that I can be one of the best in the world at this. I really do believe that. And that's not arrogance. I just truly believe it, and I want to pursue it, and I want to do this, and it's nothing, it's, I guess it's tough to explain. I mean, it's hard to, I don't like to speak about myself like that. I feel a little uncomfortable, but it's just something I believe in my core that I want to do and I can do. I see the current landscape of bodybuilding, and I think I can be in the mix with these guys. It's just time. I just need time. I'm like I said, I just did my first show in 2019. It's 2021. It's been 2 years, and I think, inside of the next 3 years, I think I can accomplish a lot. I really believe it. And I'm passionate about it, and it's what I want to do, and I'm giving everything.
For sure, man. So I want to talk about Matt a little bit more. I've had some of his coaches within Camp Jansen on. I've had other athletes of his on. Obviously, everybody speaks very highly of him, and I definitely respect him as well. So you talked about, just Matt's confidence in you and your ability, and how that has kind of added fuel to the fire for you. So
Sure.
what is it about Matt? Obviously, it sounds like Matt's only your second bodybuilding coach, so you don't have a lot of experiences with different coaches. But for Matt,
Sure.
like what is it about him that really gives you confidence, and gives you the understanding, like, hey, like, this is the individual that I want to pursue this dream and career in terms of bodybuilding with?
Sure. Well, with Matt, I mean, it's obvious, he obviously coaches, a 212 Mr. Olympia. He's coached a lot of phenomenal athletes. So I know that he knows what he's looking at. And I know he's not just blowing smoke up my ass when he says we can do this. And when Matt talks, he speaks with conviction, and I believe it, and I think Matt, more than anything, Matt's plan that he gives me and the protocol and everything I follow is one thing, but that is not who Matt is as a coach. I think that the plan and the coach, I mean, there's two separate things. Matt's a wonderful coach, and the way he is able to communicate with me and keep me positive and keep me trending in the right direction outside of the plan is what makes him a good coach. And, those are the things that have made me feel confident in myself and comfortable moving forward with Matt and wanting to build a career, within that camp. I think I can go a long way with Matt.
So speaking of going a long way, what is your, as we sit here today on November 7th, obviously you have to earn your IFBB Pro card, which I'm sure you're focused on doing that at Nationals. What is your
Yes,
future and long-term aspirations as a bodybuilder?
I mean, I want to win this show. I mean, the goal for this show for me personally is to win the overall. I want to do that. So that's the goal going in. And from there, I think it's just taking it day by day. I mean, it's going to take time to get where I need to go, but, ultimately I want to win a pro show. I would like to be on the Olympia stage, and I think that that's, in the future for me. So it's just kind of taking it day by day and setting those small set points and small goals, and not overwhelming myself with, setting too, high of goals right now. Like we've got some ground to cover. So let's look at these small goals and take it step by step. You hear a lot of those guys that, in the gym, like, oh, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia someday. Well, okay, well, why don't we, do our first local show first, and then we can talk. So right now, obviously I have the goal of winning this show and winning my pro card. And then, from there, we'll see.
Do you write your goals down, or are all of your goals just more in the back of your mind?
I wish I was that guy that, wrote down everything and was that organized, but I'm just not. But it's things that keep me up at night for sure. It's things that I stare at the ceiling thinking about every single night. I'm infatuated with this process. And like I said, that that hour on the step mill, it gives you a lot of time to think and reflect, and you can get pretty immersed in this process, during these times. So no, I don't really write anything down, but I play it in my head all day, every day.
What are in terms of your physique, what do you feel like is your strong suit, or your kind of like your knockout body parts, poses? Where do you think that you are really elite in terms of an amateur bodybuilder at this point, Justin?
Well, right now I know I'm pretty dominant from the front. I'm pretty complete from the front. My front double and most muscular, those are great shots for me. I think I look good from the side. I think turning around from the back, that's where I need to bring things up. And just overall, I need more size, but I would say the back shots are where I need to develop the most. And that has came a long way since working with Matt. He's given me some training programs to follow, and we've brought it up a ton. I think I'm going to bring something a lot different this year than I did last year because of that. But yeah, I think my front shots are my money shots.
Cool. Yeah, no, I posted a screenshot of one of your videos that you put up on your IG
Sure.
the other day. It was that front double, and it's definitely definitely a powerful shot, man. Now, speaking
Yeah,
of training,
thank you.
you mentioned Dorian Yates, and you kind of alluded to that's kind of still how you train. Talk about training a little bit. Obviously, I know you probably don't want to get too in depth. You don't want to give out the secrets, but general
No, I don't mind.
philosophy wise, how do you train? How do you break up your body parts? What does all of that look like, please, Justin?
You know, I definitely train with more of a low volume, high intensity approach. And I will say over this last year working with Matt, I think honing in on execution has been the biggest thing for me. And I think that really that's what a lot of people are missing, you know, and I think a lot of people aren't paying enough attention to, you know, mechanics and controlling the negative and just these little things that make a big difference. You know, for me, it was realizing that my back wasn't growing until I did things perfectly. My back just wouldn't grow until I executed things fucking perfectly. So I kind of carried that over into everything. And I think that's what I focus on, you know, and I'm not always the best at it. I don't always do everything perfectly. There's always something to learn, but that's my intent is, you know, robot reps. I want to do everything perfect and I want to execute everything perfectly to the best of my ability and take all my working sets to complete failure. And I think that's another thing that's missing is people's ability to take a working set into a true failure range. You know, you got a lot of guys that will train and, you know, say I took a set to failure, but you can see that they still had 2 to 3 reps left, you know, and I think that's a mental thing, you know, especially when it comes to training legs. You know, you see guys, you know, falling short on a leg press or a hack squat when you know they had a few more in them, you know, or even just leg extensions because it burns like hell. You know, you really got to be able to take within my approach. Typically, I'm only doing 1 to 2 working sets, so I don't have the luxury of pissing off a set. Like if I've only got 1 set of hacks, I gotta nail this thing. You know, I really got to get everything I can out of that 1 set. So I give those working sets everything I have, you know, and I think that's what's been a game changer for me. And again, that's kind of a Dorian Yates principle, you know, and that's something that I got from him. And again, Matt's a big proponent of that style of training as well. So following his training programs has really coincided with my ideologies and my training principles very well. And he's a guy that's helped me with my execution and really my split and my structure of my training. So together, I think we've been able to create some really good harmony within my training, and I feel very, very good about this last year of training.
What does your split typically look like, Justin?
The famous question. I get this question probably 3 to 5 times in my DMs. Every time I post a video, it's in my comments. So right now, I'm training 5 days a week. I have 2 rest days. Monday is going to be a hamstring and back day where I do 1 hamstring curl movement. I do a lying hamstring curl to warm up my hamstrings, to lengthen the hamstrings. And then I'll do an RDL, which is going to be a stiff leg deadlift, which is also going to be a back movement. And then I get into my back training. Tuesday is going to be a chest and tricep day. Wednesday I take off. Thursday is a full leg day. Friday is another back day. And then Saturday is shoulders and biceps. Sunday off.
So how much cardio are you up to at this point?
So right now it's just right at about 1 hour and 10 minutes. I do 45 fasted in the morning. As you see, that's my bike right there.
Yeah.
So 45 fasted in the morning and then 25 in the evening. So, and I like to keep that away from my training window. I'm not really a big fan of post-workout. I like to get done with my workout, eat my post-workout meal, then I do my last session right before my last meal of the day.
So since you said that, question that I just asked you is a question that comes up every day, numerous times, you know,
Yeah.
on IG.
Yeah.
What's another question or two that is really common through your social media that maybe you can just share with the Behind the Muscle podcast listeners?
Oh man. The what's your split is huge. And then obviously I own a cannabis company. I own a dispensary, then I also own a farm. So I get a lot of people asking about cannabis. I personally don't smoke. But I get a lot of people wanting to know how I utilize cannabis within my training and how, you know, it enhances my training. But it's just not a part of what I do. For me, it just doesn't personally work. It is an industry. I'm passionate about it. I love it. And it is a business of mine, but just for me personally, it doesn't work. Aside from that, I'd say that the next biggest one is where I get my oversized shirts from. People love to ask. I mean, anytime I'm wearing a baggy oversized shirt, people just, my comments are flooded. Like, where'd you get the oversized shirt? Where'd you get the oversized shirt? It's pretty funny. Seems to be a pretty trendy thing these days that people get excited about. So, what's your split? How much do you smoke? Shit, I don't know, man. It's fun. I really appreciate engaging with people, you know, because people have questions, they're curious, and I like to spend the time to talk and bullshit with people in the comment sections or DMs. You know, I mean, we've all been there where we're yearning for answers. You know, we're looking to these people that, you know, are doing what you want to do, and you want to ask them questions, and you don't always get, you know, the response you want. You don't always get people engaging back, you know. So I try to be responsive and communicative with people. You know, I don't have a huge following or anything, but you know, the people that do reach out to me, I really like to spend the time and you know, tell them where I get those oversized shirts.
So where do you get the oversized shirts at, Justin?
Oh, I don't know. I just order big shirts online. You know, I've been telling Fuad that he needs to do some oversized shirts. It's apparently in the works, but yeah, so that's hopefully in the future. But you know, for now we just.
So you talked about interacting with people on social media, and obviously I interact with a lot of people on social media because of the podcast. I obviously interact a lot with bodybuilders, and you get all kinds of different flavors of personalities on social media.
Yeah.
How do you use social media, Justin? You know, to connect with your fans? How do you use it to you know, promote your you know, your businesses and your sponsors, and how do you use it more importantly, I guess, as a positive tool as opposed to something maybe that can be negative?
Yeah, it can definitely permeate some negativity on social media. For me, I think my personal brand has become more about the training side of things. It seems like that's what people gravitate to my page for. You know, so I do like to post a lot of training videos. I try to go into some detail on what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, you know, and give people a little bit of purpose and reason why. And I think, to be honest, I think that's one of the biggest thing that's missing is the training aspect of things, you know. But I see a pivot. I see people understanding that it's not all the drugs. You know, people aren't asking me, you know, what drugs I'm taking. They're asking me my split. They want to know what my frequency is on my back training. They want to know how I brought up my arms. These are the questions that I get. And maybe that's because I don't put it out there. I don't talk about drugs on my social media. I talk about my training, you know, so those are the people that I get. But I will say that seems to be more popular these days. And I think you can attribute that to, you know, some of the voices in bodybuilding, like, you know, like Ron and Dusty doing their podcast. And these guys talk a lot about training, you know, Fuad in their podcast. These guys make it known that it isn't about the drugs. You know, there's so many boxes you need to tick and think about before you even need to worry about what stack you're taking. You know, so for me, I think that's what I try to push more than anything is the training aspect of things. And, you know, and obviously, you know, posting a physique update from time to time because people want to see what you're doing. And I try to be honest. I try to post pictures when I'm fat and pictures when I'm shredded, you know, and kind of show the whole process and just be transparent about everything, you know, because I think that's important. You know, we don't always look good. You know, I can't always pull a nice deep vacuum. Sometimes I just got a big power belly and I'm, you know, stuffing food and I'm sweaty and uncomfortable. And that's part of the process too. I mean, you have to show people these things because that's a big part of the process. I mean, it's probably a bigger part of the process. You know, you spend 8 to 10 months out of the year, you know, bloated and forcing food, you know, just for that 5 to 10 minutes on stage where you're shredded, and then, hey, it's right back at it.
So for some of the younger listeners, or maybe people that are just getting into bodybuilding or the fitness industry, we kind of all have like personal social media, but also social media can be used for business and growing brands and all that. So for somebody that's just getting into bodybuilding, just getting into fitness, maybe they're a younger listener, maybe they're an older listener, it doesn't really matter. But what advice would you give, Justin, for the listeners to use social media for positive, to grow a brand, to just use it as, again, a positive, as opposed to just kind of letting social media fall to the wayside or distract them?
Sure. I think it's just important to just be yourself and post things that you're passionate about. And I think that if, as long as you post what you love and what you're passionate about, your personality is going to shine through. And unfortunately, if you're a negative person, that negativity is going to shine through, and it's going to shine through in your interaction with your followers. But the biggest thing I would say is just be transparent, be genuine. Nobody really, anyone will tell you don't get anywhere by being disingenuous. I think just being true to yourself and posting and doing what you do and what you love, and documenting your process and being open about that process, that's what's most important. I think you're gonna bring in a lot more people just being open about your process than you are hiding particular things, or trying to post what's trendy. I think that's a lot of things that people do is adapt a persona that they think is going to be popular and favor. So I think it sounds cliche, but just be yourself and post what who you really are and what you really do.
Couldn't agree more. Talk about hostile. Yeah. I want to know, I'm curious, when Fuad reached out to you, what was the reason why he had interest in bringing you onto the hostile team? And what does it mean to you? What has it meant to you to be a part of that team and a part of that family?
It's meant everything. It's been huge. Hey, I will say my computer's dying. Do you mind if I go grab my charger real fast?
No, go for it. We'll
plug
just
this thing in.
We're gonna hit pause, and that's good.